called in
to Bucks and Brews, you might hear something
you can use.
like tips on your cash or tips on the suds.
You're gonna want to
The
use
smarts of these stuff.
because they know the brews.
And they know the Bucks, and they know they can't help the stubborn fucks.
So listen up, because shit's not funny.
And save yourself some
Beer money. Bucks
and brews.
Bucks and
Bucks
Bucks
and brews.
brews.
Bucks and Brews.
Welcome back to Bucks and Brews. Nick, it feels like we just did this 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I say it's because we did do it about 10 minutes ago. My favorite is you're like, hey, you don't have to wear your headphones. And I don't think they heard recording in progress because
And that's fine. That's the
headphones.
only you and I.
And they're like, we're like, go. And they're like, it's Wayne's World, right? 5, 4, 3. You don't say 2. You don't say 2. But all right, what are you drinking, my friend?
I have some Snapple peach tea here because I am bringing up the brews part of the episode today since neither one of us are drinking actual beer.
I brewed water today from City of Byron Center. I just think about where heck I was.
We record in a lot of different places, don't
We
we?
do. So
It's been a long time since we did a remote. Ladies, if you do need anything to drink from the kitchen, there's plenty of stuff in there to help yourselves. We have 3 guests today. We're going to be a little keeping privacy. Some. For Wendy, who has been a frequent guest on Bucks and Brews, she has no problem saying anything. So she's just kind of an open book. We also have Lydia, who was a former teacher, and Kim, who were former teacher. And we're going to talk about school and what they're getting right in schools and what they're getting wrong, how we can help students, what they need from administration and parents, and just kind of go from there. It should be a lively discussion. Hopefully we pull back some of the misconceptions out there and just kind of see where it takes us, right, Nick?
absolutely. And so, I half screwed up today because I forgot what I was going to originally make my my debate post about.
Yeah,
And it happened to be about school.
it was about school.
Which is kind of coincidental.
If you
because-
want to, you can ask that question and kick us off.
All right, let's have a little bit of fun. So, if you guys don't know, on my Facebook, every day, me and a Highland cow are either doing some type of an experience or we're doing a debate. Whether that debate is between do you like Coke or Pepsi? Do you like Michigan or Michigan State? Something fun. I am a legal content creator who's making real money doing this. So today's question was back to school debate. Do you think that summer should be longer and the kids should go back to school after Labor Day, or do you think that the kids need to start early and get them in as soon as possible? I am pro going after Labor Day, so I have more time with my kid and enjoying. And the Highland cow is pro getting them back as quick as possible. Let's get these kids learning. So, where do you guys stand on this, and do you care about that?
After.
After, okay. That's the first teacher I've had say after.
Really?
I'll be honest. I have about 4 other teacher friends that are all like, yep, nope,
Let's go.
too long of a lull. Yeah.
Teachers want a longer summer.
Say, yeah, but I guess, because I don't know, I guess, because, a lot of it was just, hey, they stopped teaching. They stopped, basically in June because the graduations, people kind of, everything just all testing, and it's just not, and so then kids go too far without learning, and getting the cycle back just becomes more of a headache. So, yeah. So, Wendy?
My opinion has always been it doesn't matter when we go back or if we have a vacation at all, as long as when they are in the classroom, they are still learning.
All right.
Right. And I will agree with both of them. It doesn't really matter. And honestly, as the years went on, I actually started thinking about year-round schooling
Yeah, of course.
and getting longer breaks or more breaks in between that families can do things together, but not as long as a 3-month break or 2-month break in the summertime. I think it's too long of a lull, and kids just get out of their reading, and which is really important to do, and they get out of any kind of educational mind of wanting to learn.
They
Absolutely agree with that.
They started doing that in California when I was still in high school. And I always thought that was interesting because they'd get 3 weeks off here and there. But my question being in Michigan, would the schools really want to turn on air conditioning in July? Because that seems to be a big issue all the time, and I don't understand why.
There are still schools without air conditioning.
Oh, yeah.
again, we pay for a lot of things. Give them the air conditioning.
Mhm.
It has to be miserable to be in those classes when it hits 90 degrees in September or even October at times nowadays.
Hmm. Yeah, climate change is real. But on the other hand, be able to take breaks off in the winter for bus driving
Mhm.
and just driving in general would also be nice.
And I was told that high school is the reason that we can't because of sports.
Sports ball, hey, it brings in the money.
I'm gonna tell you right now, people will get their kids. Now, I coached at a school maybe that couldn't get their kids to school, okay? Because transportation was always an issue at Godwin. But you go to other schools that are not an inner city type school, there's no issue with that. They'll get them there. If they want to play sports, they'll get them there. Doesn't matter whether they're in school or not. And we pay enough money for it anyways. Godwin is one of the holdouts. Godwin, Ottawa Hills, Union, Kellogg'sville. You don't have to pay for sports at those schools because they don't have any money. And the parents don't have the money and they're not going to pay for it. Up at Coopersville, they throw money at the school. They don't care. As long as their kids are playing, they're happy.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know where I stand on the real genuine care of school and when it happens and things like that. I live a different life than most people. I don't have a normal job, right? I kind of have some freedom to. So if I'm on a vacation, my favorite was last year. My daughter's teacher was like, "Hey, all right, so it's really important your kids in school, and try not to have any vacations and this and that." And I sent a really nice email, like, "Yeah, my kid's gonna learn how to live life, not being having to commit to all this." She's in 5th grade at the time. I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna teach her what it's like to do all these things. We have these vacations planned. If you don't like it, please feel free to, tell my wife because I'm not going to care. I'll be in Colorado with my kid." So, about 2 weeks later, I'm not lying. She sends a whole nother email. "Hey, you know what? It's really important that kids get to experience some things." And I was like, "That's what I thought. Way to turn on a dime. That was good for you." But yeah, I wouldn't have missed that opportunity.
I think it's a little different with you and your kid, though,
Yeah.
because your kid gets a lot of support at home.
Oh, I will say, and she's very, I don't know, you guys. I understand the whole percentile thing, right? My kid's in the 98th percentile of everything. She is a very smart child, very gifted, very but I also very much work at this, right? People used to give me crap. We drive around, and as I'm constantly driving, when she was younger, 2 plus 2. She wasn't even in 1st grade, and I was doing multiplications, right? What is 1 times 2? Okay, well, 2, 2 times 2. And she knew time. Granted, happened to be when she started learning multiplication, she somehow didn't know how to do it. But
Yeah. Well, I do want to say something because I taught secondary schools and I taught math. So when you're trying to teach something, and we had a number of students, especially some of our Hispanic students who would want to go to Mexico, and they would leave weeks before, weeks after a holiday in order to spend that time because just the traveling alone takes so much time. It was very, very difficult to try to get them to get caught up when they returned because they missed so much of the content. And with math, you have to continue with that content and then try to get them caught up. So I agree with the experiences of vacations. As a teacher, I wish I could have taken the time off to spend more vacations, which I couldn't because of my job. And I have to say that when people would pull their kids out for a week or 2 weeks before or after holidays, it was very hard for that student then to come back and try to quote unquote get caught up. Very hard. So I understand it both ways.
Yep. Oh, I say night, especially because my daughter is in a Spanish-speaking school. I do not speak Spanish. I can order a beer and some tacos. But so if she misses, right, it is trying to get caught up because I can't reteach her the things that she missed. The school promised that they would have ways to help and all that, but I tell you, the school does not have ways to teach my kid homework. I use Google Lens. I'm not gonna lie. All right, and my kid will tell me what it says, and I'm like, you're wording it because Spanish is kind of worded differently. Like things are put just a little different. And so, yeah, I understand what you're saying. We don't take extended, and also, yeah, so going that long, it's very hard. I completely understand.
I got a couple
Yeah,
questions
please,
leading into this.
run to it.
So OG Toast, their schools start at 7:30 in the morning and go till 5:30 in the afternoon.
Jeez,
Oh,
They're in Missouri.
that's a long school day.
day.
Ooh,
That would be horrible.
Mhm.
they get like 2 lunches.
I don't know.
Say 5:30. That's dinner time, baby.
Christy wants to know, are the struggles of keeping up different now with as much learning as can be done online, which, with some students, they don't have online. I mean, we think of that as just something everybody has now, but I coached at a school where I bought lunch for them because they didn't have money. I was basically their primary male figure because they didn't have a dad around. I uniquely understand some of those problems because I got to live that for 8 years. Thoughts on 15 minutes for lunch, Nick?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Thoughts on if online is a way to help keep up with that if they take a trip?
Right. Well, interesting, the online types of education. AI, especially now, is in the forefront of all of my friends who are still in education. How do you need to teach the kids technology, and yet they're also finding technology is harming kids. And I really, I know there's a school up in Mesick, Michigan that went completely tech-free K through 12. And I understand it because they're finding that going back to handwriting as compared to typing, getting less screen time is actually helping kids overall, their mental health and how well they're learning. So yes, I can think if you're going to go away, that perhaps education might be able to taught through online, like a lot of teachers will assign through Google Classroom or whatnot, lessons that they can then look up. But if the kids don't have the technology, going back to my Hispanic kids, they're on the road. They're not doing any work when they get on during their drive in the car, and also when they get down to Mexico, they just don't have access to the internet. And so they're behind. And so there's a lot of things you got to consider in terms of access, not having access, money versus not money in various districts, and whether or not screen time that's a whole different issue, is screen time, where that falls at education, especially with the AI.
I don't think we asked this, but I'm going to ask this. How long were all of you teachers?
I taught for 32 years.
5 years.
31 years.
Man, bless your guys' heart. Jeez.
Wendy got out quick.
Yeah, say it.
Well, 5 years teaching other people's kids, and then I spent the next 20 teaching my own.
Were yours homeschooled?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, except for that year in 2020, 2021,
sure.
where my daughter was a senior taking 4 AP classes and I was her teacher.
How did that go?
A lot of tears.
From her or you?
Both of us. Yep.
I taught Caitlin between kindergarten and first grade because when she got done with kindergarten, she didn't know anything over like 30 when it came to numbers. So we sat down and did math the entire summer. Now, Lydia mentioned she's a math teacher. I would have been your nightmare in high school. I actually sat in a parent-teacher conference with my mother, with my Algebra 2 teacher, and she pulled out my test and she handed it to me and she goes, "Show me how you got this answer." I don't know. She goes, "But it's right. Show your work." I'm like, "I don't know how to do that. I just know the answer." I was great at math. And then I took a kid that was not. And boy, did we yell a lot. It was a fun summer in some aspects, but it was horrible in others because all we did was scream at each other because I just know it and I don't know how to teach you it.
There's a reason that math teachers make you write everything down.
Right.
Even when it's the times tables, even when you're in 5th grade learning the times tables, because if you don't write it down now, when you get to calculus and that you think you can get the answer in your head just because you thought it all the way through, like my son, who was great at math all the way through trigonometry until he could hit calculus. And when the problem took 6 pages to calculate, he could no longer do it. Yeah.
Well,
I stopped.
That's why
I
I
stopped
don't know how to
after
teach it.
pre-calculus because I got there and I'm like, I don't know what the hell you people are talking
That's
about.
why you
anymore.
couldn't teach
Yep,
it, because you
100%.
had never broken down the steps
Nope.
before.
one of our guests says, if you're teaching your kids and the kid isn't crying, are they actually learning?
I was the worst coach for my kid. I screamed at her constantly because I knew what she could do and I knew what I wanted. And she still would rather have me as a coach than not have me as a coach. But man, teaching her was one of the hardest things. And I mean, all three of you know my kid. She had her own unique issues, and actually that leads me to segue into another question. So you have a kid that obviously has a learning disability, which my daughter did. How do you take a kid that has to reintegrate into class when they might get pulled out for some extra services? How hard is that bringing them back into what everybody else is learning?
That was one of the things that Saranac back in the 1990s was really good at. The kids that were designated with an IEP that had special education services did A work in my class because they had the support outside, and they were never taken out. They were not missing any of my class, but they had the extra support in another class period that they always did really well.
Mhm.
No matter what their diagnosis was, the autism or learning disabilities or across the board.
But they still
could do
have
well
the additional support.
because they were in my class and were not missing material, but they had someone who would sit down with them and walk through their homework with them, walk through the lesson with them, and make sure they understood everything. So then when test time came around, they were some of the most prepared kids because they could do it flat.
But when you have districts that just put an extra person in the room to give help to that student, that extra person ends up helping everybody, and that does not work at all because the student who it's intended for gets very little extra help.
Right.
So
I mean, there are accommodations as well, and teachers will prepare themselves with each and every kid, whether it's a 504 or an IEP, and what they have to do to be able to help that
Start
student.
with the 504. Oh, you're gonna move this. What's a 504? I'm sorry.
So a student who is not necessarily in special education, they don't have an IEP, a parent can request, it's called a 504, to make a special accommodation for a student that doesn't qualify for special education, but they have a little bit of a disability in
But
an area.
have a medical need.
Okay.
There has to be a diagnosis.
So I want to get to a question we asked here. The OG Toast is curious on everyone's view on the removal of elective courses in schools.
I hate it because that's what makes school fun. Kids work in their academic classes, they're required, but you have to be able to have kids be able to explore other areas, whether it's wood shop or art or music, now gaming, lots of different things to actually, what in sports even, to make a kid want to come to school. Because if it's pure academics, it's just pure work, and kids are kids, they need to have fun.
And the schoolwork now is hard. The high school work is the equivalent of my college work. They have really raised the rigor.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Learning new things.
There are many courses you can take at Coopersville that when you graduate, you have the equivalent of an
Well, like
associate's.
I understand, like AP classes and things, but like I say, just generic. Granted, it's been years since I've been in school. I remember going from a charter school to a public school to another public school, and what I was learning in third grade at a charter school was the same thing I actually learned in fifth grade at a public. And actually, it was Byron Center public schools. I was like, I got held back in third grade, and then was very smart by fifth because they're like, "Fuck this kid! Why do you get held back?" And I'm like, "Well, you guys are all just dumb, right?" So then it was like, it was easy to me because I've learned it 3 times. It's like, but yeah. So and then I go over into Wyoming, and they're kind of the same type of a thing, and end up over at Granville, and that's life started a whole different thing. But yeah, each school has like different levels of, an expectation. And, um, I to find that, because I think America is like, we have, we brag, but, we're supposed to be the greatest. We have all of this. We bring in the brightest minds of people from all different countries. Like the way we teach and the way of learning, like we have some of the dumbest people I've ever met in my life, right? Like I don't
Well,
get this.
Going back to the rigor, the higher expectations, I remember when they made a graduation requirement that they had to get through Algebra 2.
Yeah.
And I actually as a math teacher, I disagreed with that because I understand that we're trying to prepare kids. If at first everyone's like, you're preparing them for college, but in reality, we also have to prepare them, in my opinion, for trades.
Sure.
Trades can be just as important as college. And I think an Algebra 2 requirement is too much. The kids who want to go on, they're going to go on, but algebra and geometry, I think, are good requirements for graduation, but Algebra 2 is I think too much for most everyday jobs, unless they are serious about going on to college. Then I can understand Algebra 2, but even then, even college requirements, you just have to pass algebra in order to get a college degree. There's nothing getting above that.
We'll see. I was decent at math, but
Do you guys agree with that or not?
No.
No.
Depends on the college, certainly, and what degree you're getting.
Yeah, sure.
Um, I haven't
But even to be an elementary teacher or,
elementary. Oh, okay.
right,
Okay.
you only have to pass Algebra 1 and that's it.
And so, unless your degree involves math, you
Mhm.
don't need higher than that.
Yeah, math or science, you don't need anything higher than Algebra 1.
I have like 800 questions.
let's.
My mind's moving a million miles a minute. I'm going to segue back to my kid because that's the experience I have. In 8th grade, she was at Byron. And one of you here, I know because my wife showed you how they were testing her. They literally pull us into school to go and tour the high school because they've decided that Caitlin has an IQ of 66 and will never graduate with a diploma. And that's devastating to hear as a parent. And I was beside myself because they're sitting here telling me things about this kid that it just didn't make sense to me because yes, she's delayed and she has a hard time with comprehension if she's reading it. But if I'm talking to her, she understands what I'm talking about. This is not a kid with a 66 IQ as far as I'm concerned. And they're touring us through the high school and they go, well, we really think she should get a certificate of completion because she can't get through Algebra 2. I went, that's bullshit. I'll get her through Algebra 2. They go, well, you can't take the test for her. I'm like, I don't give a shit if she passes a test or not. I'll get her through Algebra 2. And they take us to very fine man's class, and we're touring this class, and he's great in special education and all this stuff. Awesome. What's she going to learn in this class? Well, she's going to learn how to do the laundry and go grocery shopping. She does my laundry now. I don't need to learn how to do the fucking laundry, okay? Well, we don't think it's possible. I'm like, I don't really give a shit what you think. Now, she did not graduate from Byron. She spent her freshman year there. She got a 2.6 with minimal help from Dawn or I, and ended up transferring her. When I got the coaching job at Godwin, I transferred her to Godwin because I wanted her to play for me. And she ended up on National Honor Society because, again, she was at Godwin and the standards were just lower. I mean, by the time she was a junior, they did away with exams, which I thought was asinine. And of course, Dawn and I were always asked to sit in on committees, and a lot of that opened my eyes. I remember sitting on a committee and there were teachers and only 2 parents. Of course, it was me and Dawn. And parents were like, well, when the kids act up in class, I'm like, I don't have any experience with that. My kids don't act up. And one of the teachers who also coached looked at me and goes, yeah, but you can say you don't get any playing time. What am I going to say to him? That's a good point. I don't know how to motivate a kid to do better in math. I know that before I ever transferred my kid to Godwin, I had a conversation with Marv Johnson. And Marv goes, you know what? We're blessed in our district. We have one teacher that will stay at school till 9 o'clock at night. And if you walk into her class with any subject, she will sit down and teach you that subject. Doesn't matter if she teaches that or not, doesn't matter. All you have to do is walk in class and say, hey, miss, I need some help. My kid had that teacher. That's one of my favorite teachers of all time. It's hard navigating those things when you are so involved. And I mean, I know when you looked at Caitlin's scoring, you're like, yeah, that's not that kid. I know this kid. I think sometimes, especially if you're in a good school, you just kind of pigeonhole these kids into a certain area. I don't know. I'm on my soapbox. I'll get off. But any thoughts of that while I'm just sitting here word vomiting?
I do think they force a lot of kids to be college prep. Kids who look like college prep, kids who gotten A's all the way K-12, kids who take all the AP classes, they just assume those kids need to go to college. They need to have some sort of a white collar job. They won't be happy unless they're making $1 million by the time they're 30. That is not true. That is not true. I lived it. I had an honor student who graduated from high school in the top 10% of his class. We just assumed we had to send this kid to college. We sent that kid to college. That kid was so depressed by the end of his first semester, he was nearly suicidal. He quit. He went to community college. He is the happiest mechanic you have ever met. He makes way more money than his high school classmates do. He has his own house. He's happy. And he didn't need college to do that. He loves his job. He's very good at it. And he didn't need college to do it. And if we had known that ahead of time, we would have prepared him better.
You have two of the most different path students I've ever seen, because your daughter graduated college in 3 years.
And got her master's the year after.
Right. Totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, all three of you have two kids.
Mm-hmm.
All three of you have a son and a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Time to get a boy.
I'm too old for kids now. I want the grandkid. That's what I
I
want.
thought I was, but look at me.
I always said once Caitlin graduated, we could adopt a kid, but I was turning 36 that year, and I'm like, I'm too old to start this shit over again. How old are you?
I just turned 38. Yeah, I got a 4-month-old.
No, I agree totally, because I also, both of my kids, I think as an educator, you also push your kids to do well in school and be respectful of the teachers and the system, and always tries to do their best. And my kids did well also in very A's almost always. My son was also in AP classes, was pushed, went into college. He ended up quitting. COVID helped facilitate that. And he went to diesel tech school down in Indianapolis. And now he's a manager at an auto repair shop and loves it and is doing well. So I think there's a lot to be said for doing other things besides college. And I think, the schools, it depends on the school, but the push to make kids go to college. What school are you going to pick? What school are you going to pick? As compared to, there's far more out there in terms of trades, electrical, plumbing, building. Our building trades are hurting right now. We don't have enough people who know how to build.
All of the trades are hurting because Gen Z doesn't have the people to staff it, because they're all kids who struggled through college or didn't know what they wanted to do. So they went to college anyway, and they're throwing money away.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not even listening to what their own dreams are.
Which is why, going back to electives, I think
Yeah.
electives are incredibly important so kids can experience those pathways that they may not know anything about. I think there should be all kinds of electives out there and less
English
requirements.
literature and biology don't necessarily make the list of things that kids are going to find themselves interested in.
Nor
love
algebra
to
2.
do, make them happy. They
That's,
need to experience art and music and auto tech and
Yes.
building trades and
Yes.
do,
Huge.
do I need to experience art though?
Yes,
I
think you
do.
need to experience.
yes, I
Right.
think.
Really?
I
Not
can,
over and over
tell
and
me-
over
no.
again.
No, but like the one semester I took, which I had to.
That's enough.
What?
okay, why
what-
did you have to and how old were you?
I was in high school?
Okay,
Why did I have to? Because I mean, it was a forced upon thing for me. Like it was a class you had to take,
Okay.
and so I. Sure, don't get me wrong. I made clay. I still have that clay sitting on a shelf somewhere. I glazed, but like, what did it teach me? Right? I remember putting 1,000,000,000 dots on a piece of paper, getting really annoyed by that.
right, but it didn't see, you didn't click with it. But
No,
there's
not at all.
other people who,
But I
they
knew
found something, that they clicked with it, they never experienced before, and they're like, man, I love this.
You should have
you
options.
should have options.
Yeah,
You
Right.
should
Yes,
have
sir.
options.
Don't get me wrong.
What art would you like to explore?
I took 4 years of wood tech. Trust me.
So
But going back to
should have
wood tech,
counted.
So
That should have counted.
where I went to school in Lansing Waverly, they made every student beginning in 6th grade take these little I had to take wood shop, I had to take choir, I had to take band, I had to do a cooking class, home ec type class. I had to, and I found I love doing woodwork.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have continued with that. But nope, no, you have to do this or you have to do that. And I kind of regret that. I also wish I could have learned how to do that clay stuff because I never took the art class in high school. So I would have loved to have done that as well.
I graduated in 95 from Plainwell. In middle school, it was 6 weeks of home ec, 6 weeks of computer, 6 weeks of wood shop. I think the rest was gym. You did it all 3 years. You didn't get a choice.
Yeah.
Now, am I great at working with wood? Fuck no. But I did make some things and I did learn how to do it, and I have a healthy respect for it because they made me.
Yeah.
The 2 best classes I took in high school were keyboarding because it taught me how to type without having to look at the keyboard,
Yep.
and auto shop. Did I learn how to do much on a car? Hell no.
You can do your own brakes.
But I sat there and I found out for the first time, hey, stupid people don't take this class. Because that's unfortunately where I was. If you did things with your hands, you weren't smart enough to do other shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better. I was ignorant. And those things taught me that, hey, you got to actually be pretty smart to be a mechanic. You can't just walk in there and be some dumbass.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the best classes I accidentally had, I broke my collarbone. I was going to go to KCTC, Kent Career Technical Center or whatever, for cabinet making because I was going to do woodworking. I broke my collarbone. They're like, hey, you can't do a damn thing. We can't have you here. So the only class that was open was parenting. And I tell you what, as a high school boy, being one of only 2 men in this class, it was great. Also, the teacher loved it. But also, even to this day, I actually use some of the knowledge with my own kid. All right, hey, this is why this kid kind of acts this way. These are the steps that I should be seeing. As a man, I don't know a dang thing about kids. I have an 11-year-old now and a 4-month-old. I'm relearning, okay? And technology, I tell you, has come so, you know what? Back in my first child, okay, we had to ask people to warm our bottles up. You know that now I can carry around a thing that I can push a button. It'll warm up my water or my milk, and then I can pour it in. Life is lazy, baby. Shit. That's like $40 I've spent in a long time.
Hey, David,
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to a couple of things you
Yeah,
said.
please.
Yeah.
First, with your daughter, special education is expensive, and the more pieces they put in place for her, the more expensive it gets. They had not diagnosed her fully, and so they had not tried interventions that would have been so helpful for her. So that was part of the problem to begin with. They just wanted to slap on a label that they thought would fit and put her in this program and all would be good. If they had spent the time really learning who she was, I think her story would have been very different. The other thing that you mentioned was student behavior. That's a big topic. So if we want to get into that
We
one,
do.
I want you to hold that thought real quick because
okay.
I want to circle back to kids with IEPs because we actually had questions and I kind of glossed over those real quick. So the struggles that you guys mentioned of you know, if a kid did leave class and come back, how did you, are those keeping up different now? Is learning can be made take down? Oh, no, that's a different question. Sorry. I
How did we,
had to go.
that kid try to get caught up?
I mean, yeah, that to an extent, and there was another one in here, but go ahead and talk on that for a minute, Lydia.
Well, that's the hard part, right? Because you have one kid who comes back and they're so lost in a classroom, and with teaching math, everything that you learn, you use in the next thing that you have to learn. And now they are behind because they didn't learn what they need. So now you're going to have to ask of that student to come in before school, during lunch, or after school to spend time with you in order to help get them caught up. And can the student even do that? What about the transportation issues? Do you, what about lunch? They need a break as well. I need a break as well, to be honest. And
it's not just once,
right,
because they're going to miss class the next week and the next week.
It's so hard. That's why, going back to you vacationing,
Yeah.
it's really hard to get a kid caught up so they can be with their peers, especially if they had even a little bit of a struggle before they left. If they're really a kid who is self-motivated, who wants to learn, it's different. But if you get a kid who is an average kid and they are not motivated to learn, or their parents are not necessarily pushing them to learn, that's the teacher's job. They'll tell you, that's your job to teach my kid. It's not my job. It makes it difficult because now the kid has got to want to learn to get caught up. And if they don't have the desire, how do you teach a kid to want to learn? There's the struggle as a teacher.
Well, and I found that question and you're answering part of that right now. It was, how do teachers feel about those specific kids? And is it overwhelming or straining to your actual relationship with those kids?
It's not straining to my relationship because one of the things as a teacher was my relationship with my kids. That was the most important thing. It wasn't about, people say, you're a math teacher. I'm like, no, I teach kids. I just happen to teach the subject of math, but there's more than what goes on in that classroom than just teaching the topic. Those relationships that you build with those kids, that's what makes them want to come back and learn. Any kid can learn a topic as long as you have a good relationship with them. So kids who get behind, my relationship with that kid makes all the difference in the world. If I can encourage them to say, I can help you with this, but you got to put the time and work into it as well. I'm willing to go out of my way to help you, but you also have to go out of your way to help yourself. And I'm going to do it. Can you come this time, or this time? I'll work with you. And if they're willing to work at it, I can help them. But if they're like, nope, I'm not coming in. Nope, I'm not going to do it. The only thing I can do is reach out to the parents and say, this is what I suggest you could do because they're not willing to work and do this with me. I can't do any more.
Well, I know some of your former students, people can't speak highly enough about you.
Well, thank you. But I feel the same way about them.
I know you do. I know you do. And it's hard because when you're with these kids, you see different sides of them, what everybody else sees. I coached for 8 years at Godwin, and I told them all the time, listen, the perception is you're thugs, you're stupid, you're worthless. You have to go in here and be better than everybody else. Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass yourselves. Act right. I would go to places and umpires would come up to me and go, man, your kids are always the best. Yeah, I know. They have to be. That's the expectation I have because I can't have them come in here and act a fool because everybody's going to go, well, that's what I expected that kid to be like. The year after I got fired, the first week, a kid sat there screaming curse words at an umpire. I heard from 3 umpires about it. That team's not the same without you. I'm like, that's not my problem. They were screaming curse words at umpires. I'm like, again, that's not my problem. I never coached that kid. They're like, it's sad. I'm like, again, it's not my problem. I don't have to deal with that anymore.
So that's a decent little seg. Are you done with your little question?
Yeah, question.
Right. So you had mentioned
Yeah, I want to get back to that.
behavioral with kids and how this whole new life has changed. And what are you guys seeing? What did you experience, and how did it help force you into retirement? I mean, did we make decisions? I still have friends that teach, and they say it is some of the hardest stuff that they've had to deal with is just a kid will look at you square in the face and tell you to go fuck yourself. You
Mhm.
can't do a
Yep.
thing, right? So
And that kid gets to stay in school
Yep.
and he gets to come back the next day and the next day. And the other 23 kids in the room are completely traumatized over it. And that child can beat kids up and kick their teacher and
yeah,
and call them unbelievable names, and the child stays
Yep.
because their home life is worse,
yeah,
is what we hear. And it's not even sitting in a detention room at school anymore. They stay in the classroom. Well, what is happening to the other 23 kids in that classroom? Those 23 kids are taken out of the room and they go in the library and try to recommence their lesson without their materials because one child has dumped the desks and all of the shelves. How is anyone supposed to learn in that environment? How are teachers supposed to survive in that environment?
Yeah, they don't teach you that when you're going through your,
Well, that doesn't happen.
no, when you're going through your preparation in college to learn how to teach, we did student teaching. You have student assisting and then student teaching. And, when you're a first year teacher, you think you know what you're doing and you go into the schools. And after the first year, you can reassess it. Man, I really could have done this better. And then you learn again, but you're not learning from what you learned in school. You're learning from the kids themselves and how you manage to work with that kid. And in terms of the kids being disruptive in class, my later years of teaching, that happened more and more and more. And it was very difficult. And then your classroom management, you think you know your classroom management, but kids are coming in now because of different home life situations. They get angry. Phones, try to even remove a phone. They will have a complete panic attack and go crazy if you even the idea of taking away that phone from them. But they're not learning either. So as a teacher, they tell you, well, your expectations, this is from administration, are you can't let kids sleep in your class. You can't let kids be on their electronics. You have to have your, statements. And it's very difficult when you have not more than one, actually, a couple kids who learn there aren't any consequences to the things that I do. I get out, I go down to the office, I sit, I get candy, I get to have a little bit of free time, and then they let me just go back to class again. There's no true consequences to behaviors, and as teachers, we used to be able to have consequences. And that has been removed from all teachers. And so we're like, okay, give it to the administration, but they don't take care of it either. They just send the kids back.
They
And
give
then
them candy or they play basketball and they send
it's
them back
almost
to
a
the
reward
classroom.
system for misbehaving as compared to being a consequence for misbehaving. And that was very frustrating. So yes, towards the end of my career, that was becoming more and more predominant, which made me actually want to retire earlier than what I had planned to do.
Well, I think with the exception of Nick, we're all Gen X here. And I hear the millennials get blamed for all of this shit. And it irritates the hell out of me. The participation trophy thing, that wasn't a millennial thing. They got them, but it's not like they were asking for them. But I feel like the parents of those generations, the older Gen X and the younger boomers that decided, hey, we have to give a trophy to everybody, ushered in that you're not allowed to give anybody any consequences to anything anymore. Because again, like I said, when I was part of a committee and they had parents on it, they're right. My consequence is if you act a fool, you don't get to play. But if you act a fool in class, they're not doing anything. And some of these kids, they didn't learn any manners because they're not getting it at home. The parents are probably unbearable if the kid is unbearable, and you're telling them it's okay to just act like a fool. They're going to get into a job someday and act that way, and they're just going to get fired. Just you can't act that way in public.
Right. Well, and it's interesting. I had a student who was just constantly, even from the very first day of school, trying to do activities to get to know the student, would refuse to do even that work. And this young lady, over time, would come in late to class all the time on purpose. When she came in late would be very disruptive, say a bunch of things that were actually terrible things to other students or myself. And when I would call home of course, I'd talk to the principals about it, and they're like, you have to handle that. The administration didn't want to handle it. And so I'd call home, and then the mother's like, don't call my house anymore. And it's like, well, I'm required to call you if I'm going to discipline your daughter or require a lunch detention from her, which if I gave a lunch detention, I had to serve the detention with the student. I couldn't, there wasn't anybody I couldn't do after school detentions because how is the student going to get home? You can't do that. And the parent won't bring them in the morning because they take the buses in. So the only opportunity to give any kind of detention was a lunch detention. And what if they don't show up to that? What are the consequences again? And then the administration would turn around and give it right back to you. Well, you have to come up with the consequences. So that was very hard. So when I tried to call the parent's like, don't call me, that's your problem. And then the consequences turned into, after multiple times, after detention was suspension. Well, then the child would get suspended and come back and thank me because she would have a new hairstyle, or she would have new nails, or I got to go to the mall, I got to go shopping. My mom took me out. Go ahead and suspend me again. So what do you do? And that's the difficulties that teachers, I would say more in inner city schools, are dealing with.
Not inner city.
Okay.
Not in.
Okay. So that was the frustrating thing. And so that's what I started to experience as an educator towards the end of my career, never at the beginning.
It probably happened to you more, but it does happen everywhere else.
Oh gosh, yeah. I see.
Yes, that was a catalyst in saying, you know what, I have enough years where I can retire, even though I wasn't ready to.
It's too bad. Now, so the administration is putting it on you. That's crazy to me that you have to handle this. This is, I say things I didn't realize, and graduating now, especially in inner city, right? You want the numbers up, but the school wants you to graduate more than most kids want to graduate. I firmly believe that, right? Like half these kids, look, I'm just going to leave. I'll turn 18, I'll go get a job, and I'm just going to do the same thing whether I graduated or didn't graduate. Never in my entire working career, I'm going to do this to my contractors. I'm going to ask them for their diploma, just for fun, just so that way they feel like they actually used it for something. Because all the jobs I've ever had in my life, I never had to provide my Granville diploma. You know what I had to do that when I was transferring into Davenport? Hey, you got to get your transcript, and I got to call Davenport or Granville and be like, hey, can you just tell them I don't suck at life, right?
I mean, I have experience with two administrations, and they couldn't be polar opposites if they tried.
Yeah.
One, when my kid was in school, she had a principal that didn't even bother to show up to fucking graduation, which pissed me off.
Wow.
He I don't know what the fuck he did, but if you lined up 10 people, I couldn't pick him out. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And I was heavily involved in everything my kid did. And the other place, like I got fired from the first job because I made the comment, what are they going to do? Fire me? Fuck them. I got sat down by my AD and he goes, what do you have to say about this? Nothing. He goes, well, administration's seen it. I said, and?
Yeah.
Well, they're going to fire you. I'm like, all right,
Okay.
I really don't care. Bye.
Yeah.
And the other place I went into, and they're like, yeah, this parent's complaining because either you're a liar or the head coach is a liar, and we're going to find out who's a liar. I'm like, listen, here's the deal. You want to drag me into a meeting? Bye.
Right.
And he goes, well, we don't want you to leave. I don't need to be in a meeting either. I told you what happened. She doesn't want to believe it. That's not my fucking problem. And he goes, all right, well, I'll make it go away. I'm like, cool. Bye.
So, yeah, now with technology, you mentioned phones, right? I mean, these kids, I'm the first to admit I'm addicted to my phone. I'm not afraid, but also, I say we were on vacation. I couldn't take a vacation because, right, like
You were horrible.
I have a job that I have to tend to and try to figure out if, I take these phone calls as like, hey, I always think I have somebody's life in my hands, which sometimes I do. Say fires happen all the damn time. But it's would they allow you guys to lock phones up, and what do you do if kids don't turn their phone over? And I say the problem. At what point do you guys? So that, and this is why you guys are way better. I'm gonna be honest with you, right? If I have a kid that just doesn't feel like showing, putting in effort, hey, put your phone away. Hey, put your phone away. All right, I'm no longer talking to you. I don't care. As much as I want you to succeed, I can lead you to water. I can't force you to drink, right? And that's how I look at things now that I'm getting older in my life. But like, yeah, I always want to say, but I say we're gonna go coach tonight. If I have a kid who I've told 10 times stop picking daisies out in left field, and they pick you know what? All right, I'm still just gonna hit balls to the right fielder. Like I'll hit you a ball. Eventually, if you throw it back to me, I'll hit you another one. But but it takes me about 10 times. David probably only like 3, but
I coached a lot longer than you.
way nicer. But so technology, all these types of things. How do you keep that interruption from kind of happening?
I think technology is very important. We're surrounded with it, right?
Yeah.
But I also think it's our job as educators that we teach kids how to use technology responsibly, and not make it become the focal point of their lives. There's more to life than technology. And I've seen too many kids who all they do is spend time in their basement, video gaming or whatever, gaming. They never come out, or the mental health from the social media is a very big issue. And kids, they want the likes, they want the likes, they want the likes, they want the likes. And if they're not, and now I think it needs to be taught. On the other hand, they're showing that screen time is so harmful to kids. Do we have it? So I really think that younger ages, elementary, I really think that we should get away from the screen time until perhaps middle school, 5th, 6th grade, and then slowly start to integrate it a little bit more. But parents have tablets in kids' hands by the time they're 2 and 3 years old.
Oh, even not
Months old.
months. Hey,
Right.
you're sitting here, just put it there. And my daughter went a full year for life without having any screen time. All right, I say when my grandparents had her, they had the TV on, but we did not. And then, but like I'm not afraid to admit my kid, if she gets too much screen time, you can tell. Like she becomes a little asshole. And I'm, all right, cool, you're done. So I don't know if she's very smart, but like, so we have an hour limit on her tablet. I took a nap and it was lasted longer than an hour. Somehow she's still on her tablet, and I'm like, did you figure out how to get past this bike? And so my wife says no, but I say yes. But you could just tell, right? So I think as much as I want her to get away from it.
Well,
as much
just
as
like
possible.
you said, your daughter's a little asshole, and yet
She
she's
is.
in the 90-some percentile of learners, right? So you get education, but the teachers are trying to the tablets or the phones, it's just constant change. And their minds are different. Their brains have developed differently.
Yeah.
So now when you put them in a classroom where they have to stay
Yeah.
focused for even a 20-minute lesson, it's so hard for them to want to sit there and stay focused because they can't. I mean, they mentally struggle.
Our young 5, starting at young 5, their state assessments are on the computer.
Really?
It's ridiculous. And that state
They
assessment
have to do
stuff
it
is,
3 times a year.
I
Yeah.
think that all standardized testing should just flat out stop. I don't know. When I was going to school, we tested, I think, in 5th grade, then 8th grade, and then on 11th grade. That was it. And then we had a choice to take the ACT, SAT. If we wanted to, we went on a Saturday to the high
Not
school
during
gym,
school
not
time.
during school time. for people who thought they might actually want to go to
Yep.
college. It wasn't forced upon everybody. And so now every kid is taking it. And man, 8th grade, they do the PSATs and the MAPs and the state standardized testing. I'm a big proponent. I am 100% against standardized testing. I think standardized testing has ruined education as we know it.
I was one of the first years that they decided the MEP test would get you your seal on the damn diploma. We didn't care. And again, I was a horrible high school student because I was not, if I wasn't challenged in class, I wasn't doing any of the work. I just didn't care. So I remember I failed the reading portion of the MEP test. I think I was a sophomore. And my football coach was my counselor, and he brought me into his office and he goes, "What the hell is this?" And I went, "What?" He goes, "How did you fail this?" I said, "Well, I didn't read any of it." He goes, "Why wouldn't you read it?" I'm like, "It's boring. I don't want to read that." He goes, "You have to pass this test to get your state seal." I'm like, "Well, so-and-so fell asleep and drooled all over his. Are you yelling at him too?" And he goes, "Yeah, when I get him in here, I'm going to yell at him too. So you're going to take this again. You're going to pass it this time, and we're not going to have this conversation again." And I went, "Okay." But again, this was 1993,
When you had to fill out
1992. Yeah. And I understood consequences because I can either do this or he's going to make me run until I puke.
Standardized testing is a tool for politicians.
Yes.
Whether they're school administrators or federal politicians, it is a tool for politicians. Teachers in the classroom know what their kids know and what they don't know. If you have state or national curriculum standards, that should be enough. We shouldn't have to prove constantly that the kids are getting taught some random number of questions, the answers to those questions. And when it's 3 times a year for 5-year-olds, that's all the teacher has time for.
Yep.
These are the answers that you're going to have to put in the computer on such and such a day.
Especially since they started mixing the results of standardized testing to how your teacher performance.
Yes. Yep.
That's a great way to get rid of teachers.
Yes.
It's ridiculous because first of all, when my kids would test in the spring, I didn't even get the results of those tests. I don't even know how they turned out. And the kids who are coming in, I don't get the results of, I don't know what the questions were. We're not allowed to even see the questions on the tests. I don't even know what they were. And I can ask the kids, well, what was it like when you, like, give me some examples? And they were like, well, it was this, this, this. And I'm like, well, yeah, we kind of went over that, but I don't want to teach to a test. I want to meet the kid where they're at. And when soon as, and that was the other thing about schools is they started scripting how you were supposed to teach. It's when I first started teaching, I had the autonomy to be able to teach the way I wanted to teach, do the lessons the way I wanted to do the lessons in the order that I wanted to do them. And that changed. I started teaching in the late 80s, and man, by the end, they were saying, no, you have to follow this curriculum. You have to follow this curriculum, especially when Common Core came out. Just,
Going back to that, they're going back to basal readers
it's terrible.
because they're hiring people who have not fully gone through teacher training through college, and all they want them to do is read the manual, turn the page, read the manual, turn the page. That's not teaching.
It's terrible. The scripted, and yeah, I couldn't stand it. And when they were saying, no, this is what you're going to follow, I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do it. And sure enough, you know, I want to teach the kids the way I want to. I want to meet the kids where they're at, because that's the other thing is when you're scripting, you don't know, like the kids aren't even ready for half of that stuff. They're like, my kids aren't going to be able to do this. I'm not teaching it this way.
Well, you know, George Carlin once said, and I go to Carlin on a lot of things, they don't want an educated public. They just want somebody smart enough to run the machines and too stupid to question how their benefits keep getting shittier and their pays keep getting shittier. And that's evident in the last 30 years of education, because we're not teaching anybody to critically think. There's none of that. And you keep people distracted by the fact of, well, you know, they have litter boxes in school because people identify as a cat. You three have taught. Have you ever seen a litter box in school?
No.
That doesn't fucking happen.
Right.
But you have these mouth breathers out here that are like, oh, no, because so-and-so said there was a litter box.
The amount of people that asked me if I supported litter boxes in school when I was running for school board just blew my mind.
It's ridiculous. But again, you've got this entire population now who all they were taught to do is memorize some fact in school that really didn't teach them anything. Which brings me to, you have a smart student who doesn't apply themselves. How frustrated are you?
I work with those kids, and I've had those kids come back to me as adults, and we've had good conversations. And I was the teacher who wanted them to always show their work. Nope, show your work. And so the only thing I can say is I had one student who I had just a year ago met back up with him. He ended up not graduating, one of the smartest kids I knew.
Yeah.
And I talked to him. He goes, remember when you said I had, I think he was like you, David, where he could just look at something and say, the answer is this.
Yeah.
But he could, and I'm like, well, show your work. Or when it came to homework, at the time, I wanted them to do their homework so much. It's like I made this at such a percent of their grade. So he could ace all my tests, but he would never do his homework. And so he would maybe get a C in my class for that unit. And so he came up to me and it was at our first parent teacher conferences, and I'm talking to the parents who were also very smart. And anyway, after that parent teacher conference, he came up to me and he said, I don't understand how you can say I'm getting a C in your class when I can ace every single one of your tests. And it really made me start to really rethink myself as a teacher. I thought, you have a great point. So I made a deal with this kid, and I said, I'll tell you what, if you ace every single one of my tests and quizzes with a 98 or above, then you don't have to do any of the homework. But if you get one quiz or one test where you get below a 98, so you can maybe miss one or two questions, if you get below it, then you agree that you're going to go back and turn in all that homework. But you can't tell any of the other kids. And he agreed. And there was one time when he did get below that grade, and he came through the very next day with every single homework assignment. And you said, this was a complete effing waste of my time, but I agreed to your deal.
Yep.
And he said to me as an adult, you were the best teacher I ever had because you chose to work with me, and I respected that. And I thought, man, so yeah, what about those kids, right, who are so smart? I think the individualized stuff, you have to really work with those kids. Like, that's why I don't like standardized, because we don't have standard kids. We have kids who are all different levels. And yet when you get 30 kids in a classroom, how can you differentiate 30 different ways of teaching? And yet at the same time, try to work each kid where they're at. That is the question of all teachers.
You can't do it with script.
And you cannot do it with script. And so you learn to, I loved working with groups, putting kids so they can help each other. And
You learn to shut your door.
yeah. And then and I want my classroom to be loud, because when the kids are talking and it's loud, there's actually learning taking place. It's not it's controlled chaos, I want to say.
They're figuring it out on
Right. And they're helping
makes
each other.
sense.
So when we work in the real world, we go to other people for help. It's not an individual thing. And so when you work in groups, say, okay, here's a problem. I want you guys to figure this out. And you don't let them try to figure it out. And then you can facilitate and walk to each group and help answer questions. And so, or try to guide them a little bit. Just give them a little push in the right direction, and all of a sudden, boom, they can take off. But it takes time to be able to do something like
And
that.
the weakest person in that group can achieve the highest because all they needed was a little push or word that was able to help them link things together.
Right. And when you have one student, it's interesting to see leadership qualities in kids. Some kids are just leaders, and they actually want to pull other kids up. And other kids are followers, and that's their personality. So it's not that they can't contribute. They may not say anything, but all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they might boom, they might actually say something and contribute where there's a little stuck. They might, well, let's maybe try this. And I love that kids can teach other kids, and that empowers them. They feel like they're a part of something. So that's how you can help with the differentiation, I think, in a classroom, is to help have kids teach other kids. Because yeah, you can regurgitate stuff, but when you have to teach something, that's when you really learn it. So when I would oftentimes give a quiz where I would show all my work, and I would tell the kids, all right, I'm going to put you guys in groups. I would have four groups, 4 different quizzes. I'm like, all right, there's 10 problems on here. 2 of them are wrong. You guys figure out which ones are wrong. You're the teachers. Now you go through the work and figure out where the mistakes are. Man, they were like, what do you mean they're wrong? Huh? Check the work. You guys know how to do the math to see where the mistake was. This is what I do with your work all the time.
That's great.
Wow, that was, they loved it. They felt like they didn't have to do the work. Oh, you're giving us the quiz with all the answers already done? Yeah, except 2 of them are wrong. You figure out
Boss.
where did I go wrong?
I would have had fun in that.
So, and that just made conversation go crazy, because they're like going through, like, you do this one, you do this one, you do this one. So now all the kids are actually working
They're doing,
so they can find the mistakes. And they're like, I think it's here. And they're like, let me see. And then they're redoing the problem. And man, that was amazing.
suckers.
I would always tell my wife, hey, I need 100 pictures every game.
Yeah.
Take 100 pictures of every game. The favorite picture I have from my over 2 decades of coaching is one I took with my phone. It's Caitlin and Whitley sitting in the dugout with a math book open, doing problems together during practice. Because if you played on my team, you got good grades. That was the end of the fucking story. We were going to be academic all-state every year. I didn't care what else happened. We were going to be academic all-state every year. And we were academic all-state at Godwin every year I coached there. And they knew, if you have problems, these are the teachers I'm going to send you to. This is the shit you're going to do in the dugout. I don't care if you're not catching a ground ball today. We're going to get this stuff done.
So it's a coach, as a coach, it's my responsibility as well, right? Like gosh, going into 4th year, 5th year, whatever it might be for this
Fourth
for the same school. And, it's, hey, this person didn't show. This person didn't show. Okay. Our school has a policy of, like, you have to be there for a half day in order to do something. And it's like, all right, hey, if your half day is, 3 hours, but you had something else that you were doing, sure, I understand. I'm going to openly listen. Hey, yeah, I had medical doctors, blah, blah, blah. I came for my first 2. Okay, you made a valid effort and attempt. If you just didn't show, you slept in late for the first 2. I had a kid have to go online school for the first. Well, they ended up going fully because they kept showing up late for the first 2 hours, and they just couldn't make it to school. And I'm like, we have heart-to-hearts about what decisions are you making in life? Like, why are you doing this? And then they got their way and ended up getting full online at home. And I'm like, okay, show up 1 minute late to my bowling practice. You will not be practicing that day. You will sit here and you will work on everything, but you will not be practicing. And it's like, as a coach, I don't care if you're my best player. You can ask the best players, right? You can ask the worst ones. They're all held to the same accountability.
It's interesting. You're saying that kids, there's a lot of kids who just don't want to get up in the morning, especially once you get into the high school ages.
My daughter's finally finding this whole sleeping in thing.
Yeah.
Of course, as I have a new one that doesn't sleep, right?
COVID taught a lot of kids, though, because they could do online.
Yeah.
Some kids thrived with it because they could pace themselves what they wanted to learn when they wanted to learn it. And other kids couldn't stand it. They needed that teacher, that human presentation, which goes back to different learning styles, right? And so I love
talked about homework. The only reason I graduated school, truthfully, was the amount of detentions that I had, right? And people go, "What? How's that?" And never, like, if I didn't do my work in class, the only time I did homework was in before school or after school detention, because I had nothing else to do. So my work was done, and then I sat there and I was bored for the little bit of time, but, like, literally, otherwise I would have failed all of my classes. So, sure, I generally was going to get the detentions no matter what, because that's who I was as a student. But yeah, I look at it and go, that made me more successful than I would ever imagine, right? So, um,
But you asked about technology in
Yeah.
the classrooms, and I think that that's a good,
oh,
again,
gotcha.
at the middle school, high school level, I think that there is a good use for technology if the kid can apply it and learn it. And there are some really amazing videos out there, different educational sites you can go to. And I've been out, I've been retired for 6 years now, just before COVID, when I retired. And listening again to everyone that I still know how hard it was to try to get kids to learn when they had to still teach and they had to be on the computers at certain times and they had to make these. And what if the kids don't show up because they're still trying to take attendance? And yet they could go back and the kids could still watch the videos and do it on their own time. And so I think there are, again, accommodating kids who can learn online as compared to accommodating kids who just do better one-on-one with a human being. That has to change for the future of education. And how do you do that? Right?
And at the elementary level, it's all dependent on the parents.
Yeah.
The parents are the ones that have to get them ready, set it up, make sure that the child is there on time, because I'm an elementary teacher
Yeah.
and my COVID teaching experience was horrific.
I'm sure.
Right.
Try a 5-year-old.
My daughter was a member of a electric car class when she was a senior in high school. And on the first day that they canceled school, they didn't even meet. But then the following week, they had some things set up where kids could dial in. Kids were required to have a school computer with them anyway. So that step was at least taken care of. But, like half the kids in the district didn't have Wi-Fi. It was a big deal. But the first day of my daughter's electric car class, all the other students were boys. They're all popping up, like about 60% of the kids who were in the class showed up on time, and about, most of the kids who did show up weren't wearing shirts or smoking.
Oh, jeez.
And they're high school kids, so that's first of all illegal, and another kid's vaping and they're not wearing clothes, and they have like siblings wandering around in the background. And after that, Mr. Shoemaker was just like, we'll just do no camera, but we just do no camera. But I mean, it's an electric car class. What are they going to do for the rest of the semester? Nobody can go in. They didn't get their race. They didn't get any of that stuff. But I mean, and that's just one class out of all of the things that had to happen nationwide. And that's a high school class where the kids were responsible to show up. So,
And trying to teach elementary school, how to do it. The teachers, they had to come up with activities as well and lessons as well that kids could do online. Not everybody had printers to print out things.
Administration expected teachers to just be ready with all that
Right.
stuff, and they'd never considered it before.
Right. I think it was just it was hard for the kids. I mean, I think about the juniors as a high school teacher, the juniors and the seniors missing their prom and and couldn't play sports anymore and missing their friends, because that social aspect is so important for a lot of kids. Not all, some loved it because finally they don't have to be around the other kids, and that they actually thrived, actually being able to learn at home, going online, Zooming or whatever, however they did it, Google Classrooms. But yeah, again, our whole society had to really stop and look at how education is and how it works. And I think it was eye-opening.
Unequal these kids' circumstances are.
Right. And how it was eye-opening it really brought out a lot of the inequalities that people have in our society and where kids were. And reading levels just dropped. Kids aren't reading. And, people don't read when they're online. They have things read to them, which is, okay, that's good. But man, be able to read is so important. And in classrooms, teachers were able to say, okay, we're going to read this, and again, facilitate that. But at home, who is making kids read? Right. And that so many things dropped.
I was so surprised as a student teacher, and then again when my kids were young, at how many households have no books.
Right.
Like not just oh, they have like maybe a couple picture books for the kids and some they have the books that their parents read. No, there are no books
Mhm.
in so many households. And that's why there are reading programs and all that. But these are a household with no books. This is not a family that goes to the library once a week, and how how can elementary teachers, middle school teachers, high school teachers, how can we make just reading
Right.
relevant to a kid who doesn't see anyone else ever doing it?
Right. So going back to standardized testing, I mean, the zip codes of school districts will basically tell you the results of what's going to happen in
Yeah.
all these standardized tests. So, what happened is that if a school did well, great, they get federal funding. But then they're saying, well, if you don't do well, we're going to take over your school and you're going to get funding cut off. And it should be the complete opposite. So I really believe that if you're going to do standardized testing, that if schools are not doing well, that's where all the money should be poured into. They should open up centers for the parents can drop their kids off where you don't have to pay for babysitters or you don't have to pay for daycare, like drop them off so that kids could be exposed to qualified teachers and qualified individuals who've learned how to work with kids at different levels, and books and appropriate toys for developmental and the social skills needed. That kind of money would be far better off in different zip codes to be able to help not only the parents or parent who has to go to work and who's going to raise my kids. It'd be great if TVs weren't raising kids or iPads aren't raising kids, right? That you actually had teachers. That's where the money could go for inside each of those different zip codes, because zip codes where parents are affluent, they are reading to their kids. And you think about, and I don't know where it is. I'd have to look it up. But the 1,000,000 word difference, I think it is, between a kid in an affluent area whose parents started reading to them at birth until they entered preschool and kindergarten, as compared to a kid who enters kindergarten in a school district that's not affluent. And the kids have never, for the very first time in kindergarten, are being exposed to a book they've never seen before.
The alphabet.
They don't even know how to
Right.
open up a book. They don't know which way to turn it, anything. And they're already at a disadvantage, complete disadvantage in the education system, because there's that far behind. There are 1,000,000 words less.
And there are
You're about
no
to read
resources to help them catch up or even
Right. And so how do they get
even do
caught up?
poorly.
Right. So there are terrible discrepancies just based on zip codes and wealth and affluence. And that's education. So I say where districts where we don't have the wealth, that's where we need to put not voucher money, but send that money to those districts and build centers where they can send their kids just for reading and appropriate play and get them away from the screen time and get them off the streets.
Staff them with college students who want to be teachers or
Absolutely.
or run daycares or whatever. Somebody who's got a little background in education, and
That would help our society tremendously.
needs credit to move forward in the program. You need to work with kids.
Mhm.
Here's some kids who need work.
Right. Because the parents aren't able, they got too many parents who don't own their own houses. They're worried about, can they even make rent? Are they going to get evicted? So they're not going to keep books that are heavy to have to carry around. Kids didn't even want to bring books home where I was teaching at, because they didn't know if they were going to be able to stay at home, if there was going to be electricity to even do their homework. And if they were going to have to move from one place to another place, they couldn't be bringing home books. So it was hard.
I mean, this sounds like a great idea and a no-brainer, but I'm going to be my normal sarcastic self. If we pay for money for that, how are we going to pay some asshole to destroy the White House?
Okay. Well, yeah, that's
And that's part of the problem that we have in this country is we pay for stupid shit instead of things that could actually help people.
Yep.
The things that are valuable for society are being just eschewed.
Yeah.
Right.
And unimportant things for people who already have everything.
Can't have real education,
That's
can't have
where
real
the
health
focus
care,
is.
can't have, social safety nets because we have to make sure the billionaires get their fucking cut.
Mhm.
I could go off on a rant. I won't. I want to get to a question we have here, and then I also want to hit administration and parents and how they can actually help instead of hinder, which is what they tend to do. So this is something Nick and I are passionate about because obviously we do a financial podcast and we have kids and we care about kids. So we always are trying to do and find content for episodes to do for kids that are specifically tailored to them. And one of our listeners right now asked, his last apprentice passed super high level math in school, but couldn't balance a checkbook. And that concerns him, and the fact that schools don't teach you how to handle your finances. So I know that's one place we really struggle with schools is people just don't understand finances, and like religion and sex, those are things you don't talk about. But I happen to think you should talk about your finances because there is such that stigma around it. Can the three of you just kind of expound on that?
I would like to say that my position on that is that those are the sort of life skills that kids should be learning from their parents. And I certainly wanted to be the one who taught my kids about those things. And I think I did a pretty good job. I did find out recently that my daughter didn't know how to write a check, which is no big deal because she doesn't have checks with her checking account. But pay to the order of is is an archaic phrase that should be replaced, like give the money to. So they know what to put in that blank. But obviously, all parents aren't going to do that. All parents don't necessarily have the knowledge to pass on to begin with. But yes, maybe the math curriculum needs to include, even in algebra and geometry and trigonometry, if you have money, how do you take care of it?
I think that should be a graduation requirement.
But does it need to be a year-long course, or does it need to
Right.
be included in every?
Yes,
Course.
I think that it has to be a graduation requirement. It should be 1 year-long course that includes not just math literacy in terms of real life situations, because you think about stock markets. Now, in affluent communities, people understand stock markets, but in high poverty areas, nobody's investing in stock markets yet. Now, when you go to jobs, like, well, we'll give you a 403 or whatever. People don't even know what they are or what to do with them. And when I've talked to kids who are like, I had a 403 with this job, 403 with this job, 403 with this job, and 403 with this job. I don't even know where any of it is or what's happening to it. Well, that's a concern. This is your money right? And you don't even know what's going on with it. And that's the stuff that we should be, what's happening now in terms of investments and stocks. Banking, everything's done online. So everybody trusts online. But should they trust online?
Yeah,
Do you need
should
to-
they?
Right. Should they, or do you need to kind of watch it and so try to teach those skills? Because I've had kids, why do we even learn how to write a check? Nobody writes checks anymore. Nobody. And yet, at the same time, if you go to Michigan to get anything and you got to pay for it, you either need to write a check or pay an extra 3.5% credit
Yep.
card fee. And we need to talk about credit cards and credit card fees. And then you got to also talk about what a credit score is and how you get a good credit score and how you wreck a good credit score, and why if they do go to college, why do all of a sudden all these people want college kids to get credit cards and interest rates and all of that stuff. On top of, I think they should make it mandatory to teach kids about basic home wiring, basic plumbing, and car maintenance.
Basic car maintenance.
I think all of that stuff it should be a graduation requirement for every single kid.
So
Oh, go ahead.
okay, so I had my daughter's friend, college graduate, who got really angry at the bank because a check bounced because she hadn't subtracted that money anywhere. Like, she doesn't keep a check register. And she was livid because that money was there. Well, honey, you never subtracted it. Well, I don't have to. Like, college graduate, and she didn't know. Now, our foster high school daughter had no idea what checking account. They lived in poverty. So the only thing they knew of was, the cash and go sites or things like that. So that kind of teaching is not going to happen at home. So it has to be a part of our school system. And it's not money related, but time. My daughter learned not like if I said quarter after, meet me, she has no idea what that means.
Same.
Neither did my foster daughter. If I said, meet me at 1:45 or half after, she'd like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Her answers were, I'll see you at 15. I'll see you at 45. Like, you have got to be kidding me. Because they all had digital clocks.
Yep.
And that is the only way in high school that they learn
Yep.
to tell time.
Right.
So,
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it's not
be
ridiculous.
sorry.
It's again, it's meeting students where they're at and having to adapt to
We
their
know-
learning.
We don't always know what they know and what
Right.
they don't.
And so students come in and you make assumptions about what they know and they don't. And so going back to some testing things, even textbooks, cards. How many people play cards? Well, you think everybody plays cards. No,
No.
kids don't understand about
Mhm.
cards if they've never played and they don't understand card suits and anything about what face cards are. That if they've never been exposed to it, they don't know what it is. So when you talk about time, they've only been exposed to digital watches,
Digital clocks.
on their computer screens, everything. And then all schools are going to digital. And when they actually see a clock and you say, well, it's 1:45, they don't understand that a clock is divided into a circle into halves and quarters. And it's a completely weird concept to them. So yeah, those are the things that should be a requirement. And in terms of time, I think about jobs. So schools have tardy policies. Are they really followed? Oh, kids allowed to be tardy 10 times. Well, we can let them be tardy 10 times before there's a detention. But if you're tardy to your job, they might give you one time. And then the second time is like, look, it's hard, right? They don't understand that. And so teaching that how important time is to be on time for jobs, be on time for job interviews, and how to even interview. Kids don't know how to look someone in the eye and shake their hand for a basic interview. That would be another really great thing, is to teach people how to actually interview face to face. Although now with online, Indeed and everything else, I don't know how they can, but if they get called in for an interview, they should know how to do it. That's important. That's an important skill, people skills.
The
So-
effects of gambling and
Yeah.
lottery and all of the
Sports
the
gambling
odds
online.
involved with that.
Yep.
The Gen Z, there are a lot of kids who have no income because they're
Yeah.
wasting it all on their phone playing games for money and
Sports gambling is huge.
and then their employers find out what they're doing on company time and they lose their job too.
So
Multiple kids I know.
that's why I think it should be a year-long class, because it's not just financial literacy, but it's also learning. Even if you're renting, like there's things you need to understand about contracts, signing contracts, what it means. What if you break the contract? What are the consequences to that? They don't know. These are the things that need to be taught. I think it should be a required class. Yes. I think that's more important than Algebra 2 by far.
General legal knowledge as well. When you
Mhm.
get pulled over for whatever, what's going to happen to you?
Well, like you said, David, there's no consequences.
no.
Our kids have grown up learning there are no consequences. Nobody loses. No consequences.
You just get a trophy no matter what.
Right. You know what drove me crazy when I was doing high school was just buying and selling prom tickets.
Mm.
There's deadlines. We have to order things, get ready. We need to know how many people are coming. Do kids want to get a ticket? They wait. What if you don't? Oh, we'll extend the time. Oh no, we'll extend the time. Oh no, you can pay even at the door. Really? So what is that teaching the kids? There,
You
again,
don't plan ahead for anything.
there's no
There's no need.
consequences
Mhm.
for if you missed a deadline, you missed a deadline.
Yeah.
You don't get to go. I feel really bad for the situation, but there has to be consequences, and we're losing that. We're losing the consequences until they get to real life. They're 18. Maybe they don't go to class. They'll fail the class. They don't understand that's a consequence. They get a job, they don't show up, or they show up late, they get fired. They don't understand that consequence. They have a bill, they pay it late. They don't understand the consequence of that. Consequences are big. We need to teach those.
I was lucky. I got to hand out a lot of those. So
Consequences?
Consequences. The best female athlete at Godwin played for me the first 2 years. And then ran around telling everybody, well, I'm going to run track and play softball this year as a junior. Of course, it got back to me. I said, that's not happening because you can't do two things. What do we say, Nick? Why half-ass two things? You should whole-ass one thing. So, of course, word got out. Hey, that kid shows up at track practice. They run track. They're not welcome here. I'm cutting them the minute they walk through the door. Of course, this kid ran down my name to everybody that would listen. And I had a senior at that time. Her name was Katie. And Katie goes, you shut the hell up because that person's done more for you than anybody else at this fucking school when it comes to your sports. Because I bought that kid basketball shoes that year because she didn't have any damn money. And for 2 years, she sat there watching practice because she realized she made a mistake. But I held her to that. Showed up, track, bye. It's been nice knowing you. I remember having my review with the AD that year, and he goes, I can't believe you did that. I didn't think anybody'd have the guts to do that. Listen, I want people to want to be here. I don't really give a shit. We're going to lose anyways. Who cares?
Just had this with my own kid. She missed Young Entrepreneur Night on Monday.
She
Well,
did?
Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, her,
Oh.
her consequences, baby. That's it. That's the first one my wife let me get away with it. So, yeah, hey, you know, she'll learn. We're hoping. But I'll say there was a on the note of reading, sorry, we're getting back to it. What do you feel about the lack of teaching script writing and reading?
Like cursive. you mean?
Cursive.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's what they're talking about, yeah. Or just using penmanship versus a computer.
The idea of cursive a long time ago was when there was no such thing as a computer, and when people had to take notes, it helped them write faster. And then they did shorthand, which it was a class. A lot of people don't know what shorthand is, but that helped you write really fast in order to take notes. And then people want to sign their names. And people, when they say sign your name, as compared to print your name, they want you to write in cursive.
Yep.
So I know they did away with cursive even in the school district where my kids went. And then some teachers were trying to teach it. But where do you find time in your curriculum to teach cursive writing? And now they're actually bringing it back.
Okay.
Yes, they are. They're realizing that is an important skill.
The new research in brain research has connected the fact that cursive writing does more for your brain development and remembering what you're learning than just printing. So,
Right. And also, in terms of taking notes, kids, they could keyboard early. They learn how to keyboard early. I remember taking typing class in 9th grade. Now, man, they could.
they
I
do it in
watched-
second.
They
Yeah,
right,
my kid had it really young.
right, and that because it's a necessary skill for school because kids type everything. Right. However, they're realizing that when kids write stuff as compared to type stuff,
Yeah.
they remember it.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's one thing we teach on here, especially when it comes to any type of money, or if you're going to set a goal, make sure you physically write that goal down because you are a 90% more likely to try to achieve that goal than just verbally saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, hey, me saying I want to lose 10 pounds versus me writing I'm going to lose 10 pounds, right? And actually physically writing it out, I have a 90% more chance of a success. So we had mentioned gambling, we had mentioned some money and things like that. So on the teacher side, I'm not sure if, because you guys were teachers, not necessarily on the financial income side, So Michigan Lottery contributed $1 billion annually, supposedly, for the past gosh knows how many years. What are you seeing that they're actually doing with this $1 billion throughout all of the entire? That's just Michigan, right? So, what are you guys seeing that they're supposedly doing with this funding?
Well, I had never seen where that funding comes in. It's supposed to go into the general fund of education of Michigan, so we don't see how it goes directly. I do know that when they built the Gun Lake Casino, my kids actually went to Wayland schools, and so when they built that casino, the casino was donating, I think, less than 1%, like a 0.5% of only the electronic, the
Slots. Nice.
to Wayland schools.
It's fantastic.
And my gosh, what a difference. Now, Wayland schools, they can't count on that money because it's not actually funded, but they used it. I didn't have to do pay for play for my kids anymore. I didn't have to, if we're a member of the community, we could get into games for free. We could get into things for free because the casino money paid for that. And so that was the only benefit I've ever seen from casinos benefiting, but it was only one school. And then I thought about that. I thought, man, I was grateful I didn't have to pay for my kids to play sports anymore because, again, the equity, who can really, if people have to pay to play all the time, there's a lot of people who just are left out, and it's not fair. I don't believe it's fair, but it benefited my family having the casino give that money to the district. And I like that, but I've never seen it in terms of the district that I worked at, the benefits of I know it goes into somehow the general fund or some type of a fund to fund education, but I've never seen it directly broken down.
Sure.
In terms of
That
like,
line I we get to see.
No,
Yeah.
gosh,
Wouldn't it be nice to see that though?
yes, well, I think not just educators, I think the public in general.
Agreed.
Where is that money really going to and how is it being used?
Well, I had this argument, and I want you guys to weigh in on this argument. So my mom calls me one day, ring, ring.
Ringing.
And she goes, "Oh yeah, I heard somebody wants to put forth that once you hit a certain age, you don't have to pay property taxes anymore. Wouldn't that be nice?" And I said, "Right, Mom, because fuck them kids." She goes, "What?" I said, "Fuck them kids. They don't need an education." She goes, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, your kid graduated, 31 years ago. So who gives a shit if anybody else gets educated? Your property taxes pay for that. You realize that?" And she goes, "I guess I never really thought of it that way." So when they say things like, "Hey, when you reach 60, you shouldn't pay property taxes anymore because you should just keep all of your money," what are your thoughts?
No.
No.
Right.
We're all responsible for educating our people, our community.
It's called
It's-
public education.
Yeah, it's everyone's responsibility. Do you want to live in a world where no one is educated at all?
I mean, rich people do. But the rest of us.
Right. Well, I mean, I think about the idea of private education versus public education, and they're really trying hard to get rid of public education, right? And I really think that it should be the opposite. I think that all private education should seriously be gone. And if the parents who want to, they take education so seriously, if there was no such thing as a private education, if it was banned and their kids had to go into a public school, all of a sudden the resources and that would go in, and the parents would like, all right, they're gonna help that school, and it just makes
It would
everybody
make
get
public
better.
education better for
Everybody, all of society would benefit from it. Everybody would benefit from it. So in terms of taxes and public education, because taxes don't, that's the idea of vouchers. That's why I'm personally against vouchers, because I think public education is being attacked on all levels. And I think that the more money and the more help that goes into public education helps everybody in the entire country.
Yes.
Is the amount of money each district gets still dependent on the amount of taxes collected by each county?
No, because of proposal A
Right.
from a long time ago, made every district supposedly get the same amount. That's
Per
why
pupil.
that's why we have our count days.
Yeah.
That's why count days are so important, which schools are like, if you come in today, we'll give you prizes and stuff.
Ice cream.
30 days
Right.
to come.
Right. So regardless, that's why count day is actually so important, because that's how schools get their money, because every child gets, I don't know what it is now, $9,000 maybe,
it?
something like that. So every school district gets 9,000. I don't know the amount. I'd have to look it up.
Yep.
But it's close to 9,000. And but some districts actually get more, depending on special education, how many students qualify, or if, again, zip codes make a difference. And, but I want to say on average, but that $9,000 now, if there's schools paying for lunches, free and reduced lunches, that's why these federal programs are helpful. And so now with them dismantling the Department of Education, should it go back to the states, and how does that going to work? These are great questions. I'm not sure if people have looked that far ahead. And again, I think there's this big push for trying to dismantle public education, in my opinion. And that frightens me as a 60-year-old.
Its place.
Right.
They don't want smart people.
Many,
that's it.
many people have asked me over the years why, as a former teacher, I did not homeschool my children.
Mm.
And I said, if I homeschooled my children, they would know how to deal with one person out of the entire world. If they go to public school, they're going to know at least a little more. They're going to know how to deal with men and women of different ethnic, religious backgrounds, people who are poor, people who are rich, teachers who have had different backgrounds. All children need to see the world from multiple points of view.
Mhm. Yep.
Not from their mom.
I'm going to ask this question because it kind of touches on what Lydia was talking about. So my kid changed schools 3 times. She went from Kentwood to Byron to Godwin. Now, the Kentwood to Byron switch, I don't think any of you know the story. So she's in 3rd grade and not learning a damn thing. Like, she'll raise her hand, they won't call on her, and whoever gives the answer is so far away from anything she thought. So at this point, she's, having panic attacks, just having the thought of going to school. We go in there because we're overly involved. And this fucking principal sitting across from me talking about, well, when she's in 4th grade next year. Some of you have seen this look on my face. It's the look of, I'm going to come across that table and beat you to within an inch of your life. And this idiot stops the meeting, takes Dawn outside and goes, well, maybe there's some problems at home. She goes, what the fuck are you talking about? Well, I see how your husband's acting. Maybe Caitlin's afraid of him. She goes, he's acting that way because of the stupid shit you're saying in this class. He's going to come across the table and beat the hell out of you if you say 4th grade one more time. Well, it's not socially acceptable to hold children back. That was the last day she went to school at Kentwood. Took her paperwork to Byron because my mother lived in their district and said, what grade should this kid be in? And teacher goes, I really hope she's in 2nd grade going to 3rd. She's in 3rd grade going to 4th at Kentwood. Principal goes, not at my school, she wouldn't be. Thoughts on, especially from you, Kim, because you were an elementary teacher. Thoughts on, is it socially acceptable to hold kids back? And if you just push them through, what the hell good does that do?
The research shows that holding them back does not benefit them at all.
Okay.
So there are times when I disagree with that, especially if the child is very small and has delays. I don't feel that spending another year in that grade is going to be harmful for them. But when you're a normal sized child and you have to repeat a grade and you are 19 when you graduate, that's a problem. It's a problem for both boys and girls.
Sure.
So here's my short answer.
Okay.
Ladies?
When,
I think that's why year-round school would be great.
yeah. Oh, Yeah, for sure.
And so that if again, differentiation is very hard, but if you find in third grade a kid is really struggling with something, then maybe just push them back a quarter
Mhm.
and have them repeat something. Sometimes you need to
It
hear
doesn't
things
have
2 or
to be
3
the whole
times.
year.
Doesn't have to, don't wait to the whole year before you say, well, we're going to have to repeat a whole year. Like, let's just, this one area, let's repeat it. Let's go back. And so they're not getting that far behind where they're now a whole year behind their peers.
We would have noticed that in kindergarten and started interventions in kindergarten.
Yes.
So that there wouldn't have been that big of a gap.
Yeah, when they had tested her middle of third grade year, they tested her at a second grade, second month ability. And they're talking about fourth grade. And I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. And we stuck her in Byron that day in second grade, and she naturally transitioned to third with everybody else. And probably being a girl helped her, because it's not like she looked out of place with any of her classmates, because, you know, she was a girl and they all got tall at the same time. And it's not like she was 6'4" or anything. She's only
Right.
5'8". Had they done it with somebody like me, yeah, that would have been way more noticeable. And
Mhm.
again, a lot of people are starting their kids later now just for sports, which is asinine, if you ask me.
It's called redshirting, not cool.
Not at all.
When I was teaching at Saranac, I believe it was my third year there, they decided to start a program called Applied Algebra. And instead of just pre-algebra, they would take kids directly from 8th grade general math to Applied Algebra 1 as freshmen and 2 as sophomores. And back then, I believe you just had to have 2 years of high school math to graduate. And they decided that I was going to spearhead this program. We did not have that many teachers. It was a very small school. And so I went to the training at the Ionia ISD, and part of me going through the training was they gave me all of these lab supplies and the manuals, because there wasn't a textbook, there were manuals. And I'm looking at my list of students who are going to take this class while I'm going through the training, and I'm thinking, this is not going to work. I did my best. I stuck with their program and all of their lab experiments and all of their specialty ways to teach algebra for a semester. And I had 2 sections of that class, the 3rd hour and 6th hour, if I remember correctly. And in 3rd hour, I had maybe 50% who were understanding the concepts. And in the 6th hour, I had 0 kids who were understanding the concepts. And at the semester mark, I talked to my principal and I said, this is not working. These are not kids who can sit in a science lab and learn basic math. These are kids who don't know their times tables at 15. You know, this is not going to work. What will you object if I find my own way to teach these kids, or do you want me to do something else that you prescribe? And he said, well, do what you can. So I went and got my pre-algebra book from when I was in high school, well, 8th grade really, but I made copies of a few pages. And that's what we worked on. And by the end of the school year, they could do some of it, but most of them had failed the first semester. So they had to repeat something. They didn't repeat it with me, because then they moved me to all the advanced math. So I don't know what happened to those kids after that. I suspect that the district just passed them through.
I just saw a video of a man who was just in tears, a teacher in Texas,
Yes. Great video.
who he has seniors, and he's like, I don't understand. He's crying. He's crying for himself and those kids, because he's like, we went through it. We taught it. I gave them the answers to fill in 4 things, and they still failed. And they're seniors and they can't read, and they're going to graduate. And it broke my heart.
Mhm.
It broke my heart to watch that little clip go through. And I thought about that. I thought about when I got moved to teach from high school AP Calc down to middle school. They gave me they said, we're going to send the best teacher to teach the hardest, the lowest kids. So I'm getting kids in 7th and 8th grade who are coming in at 1st and 2nd grade
Oh,
math
Mhm.
lessons, right? They can only, and so if you ask them what's 8 plus 3, they have to use their fingers to count 8 fingers and then count with their fingers to add 3 more onto it. And they're in 7th and 8th grade. So how do you work with kids like that? And I thought, where are these kids and what do you do? And so those are the kids that man, he's working with seniors. They got passed and they got passed
Yeah.
along and they got
Yep.
passed along and they got passed along to the point where, what do you do now? Your expectations of a teacher is you're supposed to graduate these kids. And if you get a kid where my expectation was I'm supposed to have these kids test at 7th and 8th grade math, but they're coming at me with 1st and 2nd grade levels. So how do I advance them 5 years, 6 years to get them where they're going to pass a test? Well, I was happy if they advanced 1.5 years further along than what they were. And I'm thrilled with that growth. But did they pass the 7th and 8th grade levels? No, they're still that far behind. And then I'm a bad teacher because my kids didn't pass that level. And so as a teacher then, if you're going to get dinged on your evaluation because your kids can't quote unquote pass, are you then going to say, hey, I'll help you pass and help them along and then push them along so they become the problem of the next teacher? Because you don't want to get dinged on your evaluation because after so many bad evaluations, you get fired from your job. No matter how hard or no matter how good of a teacher you are, if those test scores come back or you get evaluated poorly, you're going to lose your job. That's crazy. And so teachers will pass that on so that they can keep their job. And that's part of the issue. It really is.
I have another user or viewer question, and then I know we got to wrap up soon here, so I want to get to the administration and parents. So this is specifically for you, Kim, because we have a listener that has going to be first grader here who is highly delayed, COVID baby, has already had a couple open heart surgeries. So I mean, we are delayed.
Yeah.
At what age should a child really be read to, age appropriately, not based on current standards?
Birth
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Every day read.
every day.
see, that's it's so weird. It's not something I would have thought of. My parents didn't do this for me, right?
Didn't read to you?
No.
That does not surprise
My
me.
grandparents didn't.
That doesn't surprise me
My
either.
grandparents couldn't read.
Yeah, I know Archie.
I
That
would
doesn't
I would listen to Paul Harvey, but like,
Yep.
and so, but that being said, but my wife, on the other hand, right, and I always thought it was just because she was an amazing mother, which that's very true as well. But like, ever since my daughter was born, every single day, except for like 3 of them, when we went on vacation, she has read to my kid.
Mhm.
We now put my son in the bed, tummy time, do all this, and she reads to the kids, and still 11 years old. At what point do you stop reading to your kid?
Never.
Really?
Or have them read to you.
Yeah, I say.
Right,
My,
but
my,
you
my
still
daughter doesn't.
read.
I actually am a horrible reader. I
Mhm.
read
Nick
like
won't read.
I don't read anything. I'm an idiot. But like, and then when I read it, I don't read the way grammatically you're supposed to, right? So, then my daughter will get so annoyed with that. She'll be like, "Dad, I just got this one. Don't worry." Like, all right, read it out loud to me. You got this, kid.
But she's reading though.
Oh yeah, she's way better than me.
Right.
She's oh yeah, 110%. Like she'll read it and because I'll be like, all right, I'm gonna read this to you.
So you're, and I appreciate your honesty
Yeah.
but then you get into, again, areas of high poverty.
Yeah.
And so many of those people also can't read.
Yeah.
And so, which is why they're not reading to their kids, which is why they don't have books, right? And which is going back, why we need places so the parents can send their kids to that they are being read to regularly, at least 5 days a week, because that's critical to learning, is being able to have the ability to read for comprehension.
I have to clarify the question because I'm an idiot. As Christy corrected me.
Yeah.
Not when he should be read to. When should he start
Start
reading
reading.
for himself?
Oh.
They should be able to start reading, not a child with health difficulties, that may delay it even longer. But as soon as they're able to make a sentence, they should be able to take the books that you've read to them and read them back to you in their own way.
Okay.
So I have a 4-year-old grandson. He reads the books to me just based on what he remembers. And my 2-year-old granddaughter will say a word or two, or point when I ask her where things are. She will point to them. That's reading too. That's the beginning of noticing in stories, what's on the page. So.
Mhm.
That's a great answer.
The earlier they're introduced to the alphabet and that letters make words and that letters have sounds and all of that, the better. I
Mhm.
mean, our kids had foam letters that they played with in the tub.
Yep.
And I would ask them, what letter is that? What sound does it make? And we did that.
Yep.
We did.
Yeah, same with shapes,
They
same
would-
with numbers,
I would
same
point
with
to a word
colors.
in a book and have them sound it out. And my kids were, my older child was reading by like 2.5 because I was pregnant with his sister and we had very little else to do. But and his sister had, everyone would read to her, so she pretended she didn't know how. And I got to kindergarten, and then suddenly, oh yeah, I can read.
But yeah, I think it's critical. Me being a math teacher, it's math is a universal language, but reading is essential for just being a citizen in the country that you live in. You got to, it's hard to be able to even read a manual if you don't know how to read. How do you know?
I don't know if any of you know this story, but I got Caitlin when she was 5, and a couple months into school, we're getting feedback from her teacher, and she's like, she doesn't know the alphabet. I'm like, she absolutely knows the alphabet because she can tell me the alphabet. She's like, right, she can sing the song.
Mhm.
She can't point to a G. Of course, I'm very hands-on. Caitlin, show me a G. No fucking clue. All right. Start taking her through the alphabet front words, and she's doing it. And I'm like, all right, well, this isn't going to fucking work because she knows that damn song. So let's see. If she's 5, I'm 22, 23. Caitlin taught me how to do the alphabet backwards because that's the only way I could get her to understand what a fucking letter was, is we had to go backwards through the alphabet.
Mhm.
I'm like, they do this on sobriety tests.
Not anymore.
And my kid at 5 can now do the alphabet backwards. But again, sometimes you just got to find a way to get it into their head. And I think she could probably still do it backwards to this day. But according to them, that's a kid that couldn't graduate high school. Parents, what can they do to help you the best? Besides just being supportive.
Teach their kids manners.
Okay.
And to be respectful.
I think that parents or a parent, because there's not always two, or a step parent or a foster parent, it's a very, very difficult job. One of the most important jobs ever is to help a young person grow up, and not to be taken lightly, that job. So what can they do is to, number one, sometimes you need to just stop and listen to the kid and ask them questions that are not just yes, no answers, but more open-ended questions in order to find out where they're at, like how school is going, what do they like, what don't they like, why don't they like it, and then try to work with them in terms of wanting them to want to go to school and like school. It's not, if they if everything needs to be, kids want to have fun, they want to be happy. And if something is impeding that, and also they don't want to go to school, whether it's bullying or they're getting behind and they don't want to feel stupid, they don't want to answer, then that's where parents can really help their child, is help with that, to encourage them, because teachers, man, they're amazing people. They really do want kids to learn. They really do care about their kids. They become their own kids, and they care tremendously about them, and they want them to succeed, and they want them to learn. So if parents can get their kids in there in order to make them want to learn, and be comfortable learning, but also be comfortable in knowing that when you get frustrated or when you're struggling, it's not a bad thing. That actually, that's where real growth can come from. And so people are so concerned about being right every time and being perfect every time that when you say, no, actually, I'm glad that you're struggling. I think this is good because now that this is where the real growth is going to come from, and that it's okay. And I think that's where parents, parents always come across is they think, I want my kid to be good at this and good at this, and you have to get all A's and you have to do this. Instead of saying, I want you to be a good person, I want you to help others, I want you to be respectful, and it's okay if you struggle in an area, you're going to be good at something. Let's find out what that something is, and we'll get you help to get you the rest. You may not be great at math, but you're still good enough. We can help you get through that. Find something that they love and they're passionate about, and then work that into the areas that they struggle and build it together. You can really help kids that way. That makes a big difference.
And communicate. Like if your child had a horrible morning, just send a quick email, because as a teacher, I can love on that kid so much more than I normally would have. And if the child admits to mom at home, like, I hate reading out loud, if mom communicated that to me, I would set up with the child that I would pick a section for her to read before, so she was comfortable with it, and ask her to read, that section out loud, so she felt much more confident with herself, but that communication is so important.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that's a great tip.
Yeah. But again, some parents, they're working and they can't communicate, or they're working 2 jobs and they don't even know what's going on in their kids' lives because they're too busy trying to survive. And so there's where educators can sometimes get to know kids, even sadly, better than some of their parents. And the kids will open up to a certain adult in their life, whether it could be someone through the church, it could be someone some mentor. I think mentorships are really big too. The big sister, big brother programs, man, that's powerful. And so if for single parents out there, try to get your kids enrolled in programs like that, that could really be helpful as well. Find someone that they can feel comfortable opening up to and talking about issues that are going on. A trusted adult would be really great. Or even a trusted older, if a 5-year-old, a 15-year-old looks like a grandpa to a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So find someone who is super positive in that way. Another young person can help a kid, but someone can say, oh, and then we'll still communicate that back. And then if there's any way with phones, text, whatever, somehow letting the schools know, my kid, this is going on, instead of waiting until December to tell us. If their kid's struggling by October, let us know, so we can try to do something before it just builds and becomes a bigger problem.
Well, I think that's a good thing to note too, because we're around these kids, and I say we because I think of times back to coaching. Like I started doing Parents Night at Godwin, I think my 2nd year, and I knew what kids were not going to have any parents show up.
Mm-hmm.
So we planned, all right, who's walking this kid? And I'm thinking of one specifically that one year, one of her classmates' moms walked both of them. And her senior year, she had her aunt and Marv, my assistant coach, that walked her. We just wanted to make sure that nobody's feeling left out or nobody's feeling weird about anything, because and there are a lot of parents that showed up that day, stayed for the 10 minutes we did the introductions, and left, and I never saw them before and I never saw them after, which irritated the hell out of me, because you'd have to drag me away to not see the things my kid was doing. And even now, those kids, none of them, I can't say none of them, very few of them have ever called me David. If I hear from them and say, Coach, how you doing? It's always going to be that way. I guarantee you the kids you taught aren't coming back and saying, hey, Kim, how are you doing?
Well, now are they? Is that changing? I mean, are they calling you Miss, Mrs. Kim, anything like that, or strictly okay? So, because like I know some of my friends that are teachers, right? Like, hey, Mr. Aaron, right? And it's like, Mr. Aaron, excuse me, what did you just like? But I teach my daughter, right? Like, it's Mr. David.
Yeah, she calls me
like,
Mr. David.
It's usually first names type of a thing. Like, and so, in school, she still is currently calling her teachers by last names, but like high school and all that, I'm not sure if it's changing, but, you know, Miss Kim,
I had kids try
yeah.
because we had name tags. We have to wear our badges.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they're like they look at your name and then they try, and I'm like, look,
Yeah.
I am a teacher. You are a student. When you're 18 and graduated,
Sure.
then maybe we can go to first name basis. But right now, they couldn't say my whole last name, so they abbreviate it, which is fine. It was still missed this or missed that,
Yep.
right? But yeah, for sure. Again, as an educator, I think there's a
Line
same-
between respect.
there is a line. You need to establish a line. Like we're not stepping over this, including social media.
What? Hey, I am Coach Nick.
Yep.
Okay. It is. You call me Nick. There's a problem, right? It's not, you need to call me Mr. Sir or anything like that. I am your coach. I am not your friend, right? Like this is how it's like. And I have kids try to pull it. Nick, go ahead and try that again. What, Nick? No. Coach Nick. There we go. Now we have somewhere, right? Like if not, I will make you call me Mr. Watkins at this point, going forward. And so, times are changing, which is difficult, in the school system. The amount of parents, I say, you guys had talked about, parents you call and, had my grandpa gotten a phone call that I screwed up. I was not the greatest child in life, right? But like every time I just knew I was going home, I was going to get my ass beat. That's what it was. You had to risk. What am I doing here versus what am I doing here? Am I going to, don't get me wrong, not completely all the time, but like, I say, look, you had punishments. You found yourself in the corner, right? My grandfather raised me. Man, if you screw up there, you're going to screw up at home. Now you have 400 chores that you're going to do, right? Like, and so, I'm finding that people, my wife is so scared to tell people that our child gets grounded because there's other moms in the area that don't ground their kids. I don't fucking compare myself to other people.
If there are some teachers listening to this program, the only thing I can say as a former teacher is, I don't know what the expression, honey, is the sweet, the thing, but what I found when I was first teaching is like, I focus on, oh, this kid's doing bad, this kid's doing bad, this kid's doing bad. And then later on, it's like, okay, let's switch that around. And I focus on the kids that were doing good, any type of positive thing. So I would call parents and the shock of, wait a minute, you're calling me because my kid's doing something good?
Yeah.
Was amazing, because then I had kids coming again, Miss, you called my house, and everyone's thinking, oh, like, man, I've never had a good phone call. Thanks.
That's awesome. And
now that kid wants to work. You did something good for them, nice to them and the parents are like, I can't believe I got a good phone call. And so the kids who are D kids, C kids, average kids, they're not getting hey, your kid, they're getting, oh, they got a bad grade. They got this thing. They didn't show up. But if you turn it around and you make it positive, then the other kids want that positive phone call. They want that positive phone call. So that's what I can say to new teachers, perhaps. Focus on the positives. And if I had to do a negative, which you do, you have to, as part of your job, you're trying to help those kids. But I had to keep myself balanced. The balance is key. If I focus on everything negative, I'm going to turn into a negative person. So turn into a positive person. Focus on the positives, and that's catchy. All of a sudden, the kids want to start doing that. Even in the classroom, catch the kids who are, no, we're going to turn that statement around. Let's make it a positive statement. I can't do this. Say, well, you can't do this yet. So you can do this. You just don't know how yet. We're going to keep pushing it. Like, don't focus on the negatives, focus on the positives. And that's the only thing I can say. And same thing with parents. I mean, parenting is a very hard job. So focus on the positives, the good things that your kids are doing. Don't focus on the bad things your kids are doing.
I remember first day of practice, junior year. Clomp called me bro.
Oh, no. My daughter.
You could have heard a pin drop. And afterwards, Katie comes up to me and she's like, Coach, you know I like to have a good time. I'm not your bro.
That's bro.
I'm your coach.
Yeah.
You call me Coach David, that's what I am. And it's funny because Chris was always Coach Chris with me.
Mhm.
When he went up to Coach Coopersville, he's Coach Yost.
Okay.
I'm the only one up there that was called by my first name because I don't want you to call me Coach Levian. For one, it's hard enough to say. And for two, just call me Coach David. It's fine. I'm great with it, but you better call me Coach.
Well, and that was, my daughter likes this bro thing, and she thinks it's funny to, she thinks it's funny to give me crap that I say you can't call me bro, right? Like, oh, don't call him bro. Hey, you're right. Every kid that walks through my door better not call me bro, right? I'm not these little kids' friend, right? Like my own friends don't call me bro, okay? So, I wanted to touch base. I dealt with it. Now we had talked about, holding kids back and why, when you shouldn't, we shouldn't. When at what point do you excel a kid, right? I'll walk you through my daughter's journey. Okay. And I will say I am very much because I believe that at such a young age is the time that they develop and they learn the most and they get everything. And so if I can force her and get her all of it as quick as possible, it's so much easier when you're younger, right? So our school has an accelerated class that she can go to once a week. Well, she gets 98 percentile. She's top of the class. She's this. She's just so much great feedback. Okay. So my question is always, well, what are you doing to excel her? What are you doing to push her? Well, she's doing great. Okay. But again, why? So she doesn't get into the class. She doesn't, finally I get into fourth grade or so. I'm like, hey, we're multiple years in. What are you doing? Well, they have this, ACT. And I was like, she's like, oh, has she not taken the test? No, like you have to be offered it. You have to do whatever. Like, you keep telling me she's high percentage. She's doing all these things. Why are we not forcing her to learn more? To think. And so I don't know if it's school district based or whatever, if they have accelerated stuff or, I have a friend of mine who graduated high school, pissed me off, right? He's 5 years younger than me and graduated 10 years before me. He graduated at 12 and, gosh, yeah, I think he graduated the year 06 and I graduated in 07 and he's literally 5 or 6 years younger than me, which is just a very smart kid, right? To this day, still very smart. Apparently you don't lose intelligence. So yeah, I just want to know, I guess, how do you excel a child?
Good.
You used the word force twice.
Yeah.
You don't want to force a child to do anything because then they will hate it.
Yeah.
We thought a lot on your lines when our daughter was in first, second grade, and we decided not to do it, not to skip a grade, not to do anything like that with her, because she was young for her class. She was born at the end of August, so she was always the youngest kid in her class. And I think now if I had it to do over again, I might have held her back a year because she was so emotionally immature for her age. And kindergarten was when she met the bully that followed her through sixth grade.
Yeah.
And if I had held her back a year,
Wouldn't have dealt with that.
we would not have had that issue. But and then I also think, but should I have let that drive the bus?
Right.
Should I let a bully control my daughter's life? He did anyway until she was 12. And obviously she's intelligent. She had 50 AP credits when she graduated from high school.
It's crazy.
Excuse me. And she did college her degree in biochemistry in 3 years. And then she got her master's in biochemistry in 1 year. And she's running a laboratory at age 22. And, all the PhD students that work with her are older than her. But she got away from the bully.
Right.
But she's still very emotionally immature for her age. I would never say that to her.
Sure. Don't make sure you won't listen to this.
But
We're wrapping up here real quick.
but there's more to consider than just her 98th percentile. There's more to consider than could she learn more? She will, but you should never force her to.
And in my experience, my daughter in second grade was doing multiplication,
Yeah.
and I asked her teacher if she could, when her regular math was done, if she could work out of this workbook, and I was told no. And so I sat down with the principal and talked with her, and she said, Kim, the teacher is doing the best she knows how to do. So in other words, the teacher had no idea how to do acceleration, which is what I think you're going to find most often. So my advice would be to find out what she's interested in and explore that on your own.
Yeah.
Make those your family field trips, let her learn and discover based on what she wants to know.
Well, I was saying this year's going to be really tough. I love her to pieces, but because I've lived a very busy life. She wants to do the accelerated class. She wants to do band and orchestra, which she's now getting up an hour early. She's staying like an hour late. And I'm just like, I'm going to support you, but if it ever becomes too much, you just say so and we'll cut something. Force, yes,
Yeah.
but like it is force until I don't want you to hate life, right?
As
Like
long as
you're a
she knows-
full-grown child.
As long as she knows if it becomes too much for her, she can come to you and say, look, Dad, it's too much. Then
But she doesn't.
Good.
She doesn't get to just be lazy and not want to wake up.
So we could literally do this for hours more. This has been an excellent talk. One of our listeners said, "Thank you very much, ladies, for all you do and all you've done to educate the kids." I can't thank the three of you enough for coming in. If you're open to it, we'd love to do this again sometime.
Oh gosh, yes.
What do you say at the end?
As always, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, tell your family. We appreciate you guys listening to us. And again, thank you guys so much for joining us. I know that we talked for hours, and I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as we did.
It's a
indeed,
pleasure.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've dialed in.
To Box and Brews, you might hear something
You can use.
like tips on your cash or tips on the suds.
You're gonna want to
The
use.
smarts of these
Because
stuff.
they know the
And
brews.
they know the box, and they know they can't help the stubborn fucks.
So listen up, because shit's not funny.
Save yourself some
Beer money. Bucks.
and brews.
Bucks and
Bucks
brews.
and brews.
Brews.
Bucks and brews.